Hey, what's going on, everybody? Isaac here with Civil Engineering Academy. Thanks for being here on another podcast episode. Hey, I'm curious if you guys have ever wanted to change your job this year in 2021. Has it ever crossed your mind? Or have you already changed your job? There's some interesting statistics out there. Microsoft sent out a big survey globally, and they said that of 30,000 people that they interviewed, 41% of everyone they interviewed said they were considering a career change or quitting their job altogether. And the US Department of Labor has said that there have been over 11.5 million people that have quit their jobs, people that have resigned. I'm sure they have found other stuff, or a lot of them did, but 11.5 million people quit during the months of April, May, and June of 2021. And I'm sure those numbers are even higher if we look at August and other months as well. So they're calling it the Great Resignation. I'm curious if you in the audience have experienced this job transition as well. I don't know if it's hit civil engineering as heavy in the professional world here, but I do think if it hasn't hit, it's coming. Or I do think a lot of people still have transitioned jobs during those months as well. I myself am part of that statistic as I transitioned to a new job during those months as well. So anyway, they're calling it the Great Resignation. I wanted to talk about it today. Did the pandemic play a role in this? How did it, why is it happening? What leaders can do to prevent more people from leaving and things of that nature. So I bring my brother Mark on today. We talk all about it, and it's going to be a fantastic episode. It's coming right up after this. Hey guys, before we continue, I just wanted to read some success that people have had taking our course, the Ultimate Civil PE Review course. I know people just got done taking the paper-based exam, and a lot of people that went through our course felt extremely confident in taking the course itself. In fact, James just went through it. He said, as he got done with the exam, he said, the class was great to prepare me for the morning session. My first practice exam without the class was something like 50%. Last Wednesday, he took another one, and it was well into the 90% range. When taking the real exam, I felt confident in his answers, well over 90%. I definitely recommend this class to others in the future, and it gave us a big thanks. I just wanted to make mention of it. If you are interested in getting prepared for your PE, especially as we transition to computer-based testing in January of 2022, go check us out, the Ultimate Civil PE Review course at civilpereviewcourse.com, or go check out our website at civilengineeringacademy.com. You can find us under courses, and we are ready and prepared to help you. Anyway, guys, just wanted to mention that, and we'll see you later. All right, we are back at it with another podcast episode. I got Mark back on. What's going on, Mark?
Hey guys, I'm doing well. How about you?
Hey, I'm surviving. That's what I say. I have 4 kids over here. It's impossible.
That's right. You're a busy boy.
You're lucky we get a show out every week, everyone. That's all I got to say.
That's right. That's right.
So today's going to be a good one. We wanted to talk about a topic that I see more and more in the news. I think it is creeping into the professional engineering or the professional industry slowly. And that's the topic of the Great Resignation, as economists and others are calling this thing. And that is that a ton of employees have called it quits on working, or they are shifting either industries or moving positions or whatnot. And so a lot of that stuff is going down these days. So I wanted to bring Mark on. Maybe we could chat about it. I don't think we have any answers for industries as a whole, or what's going on out there in the world as a whole. But it's definitely a topic I wanted to chat about and just kind of.
Yeah, we can bring our perspective here to the table, can't we?
Oh, for sure.
It's something that we've just got through. I would say the meat of the pandemic, right? Hopefully we're on the backside of this thing. Sometimes it feels like maybe we're still in the middle of it, but hopefully we're on the backside of this thing. Well, people are coming around to starting, I guess, to reassess their priorities, right? A lot of folks have been home. They've been able to spend more times with their families. They've been, I don't know, maybe they haven't had to have the commute that they've typically had, maybe they were traveling an hour each way for their commute, and they were losing a couple hours of their lives just to traffic. And um, I think a lot of those things that were going on, Isaac, kind of changed people's mindset. They got reassessing their priorities and what their work and their careers are actually, um, rewarding them with. Is the salary enough? Am I putting up with too much? Is my work life balance off? It's really forced everybody to kind of make a reassessment of those things.
Yeah, I agree. There was a statistic done by Microsoft. They interviewed 30,000 people industry wide, a global survey, and they put out that 41% of the people that they interviewed were planning on either quitting or changing their careers.
Yeah, I read that.
And so I can't help but think that's hitting the civil engineering industry. Maybe it's not as prevalent, but I'm part of that statistic, and I personally know quite a few that are also part of that statistic because in these last few months, April through June, if you read articles, there've been like 11.5 million people that have quit their jobs.
Yeah, they were saying 4 million is just in April alone.
Yes,
That was just in April.
yeah, that was I was part of that statistic.
Right.
But I think you hit a lot of things on the head. The big question is, why is this happening? It seems like 2021, a lot of this is going on, and I think if you, rewound the tape, this all probably started with COVID, people working from home, people discovering there's more flexibility, and now leaders and others are finding out that employees actually really like this stuff, and sometimes they've been forcing them to come back to work, and maybe that's backfiring a little bit on them. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of this hit the industry, civil engineering at all on your side?
I've the some of the people that I've worked with, I've seen a little bit of turnover, but I would say in general there hasn't been much at all. Which tells me that, and I know a lot of individuals through the pandemic that were working from home. As I've mentioned a lot before, I work with design professionals that, a lot of their work could be done from home, and that's primarily what they did during the pandemic. And so, a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of interfacing, using technology and communicating that way. And I think employers and design firms were generally very accommodating for those things. And so, I don't in with everybody that I work with, I don't get a sense of discouragement or unhappiness with their employer. You know, General feeling is that they were accommodative and took care of their people during the pandemic, and now that people are coming back to their offices, it's just kind of we're getting back to interfacing face to face a little bit more, and it's just kind of business as usual. So
Hmm.
I
I wonder
haven't.
if that's dependent on industry, like which industries you're in or whatnot. But
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I can be the flip side of that coin. And I know, in my past employment, there's been big turnover, and a lot of that kind of stems from, I don't know all the reasons why, but some of those reasons are the flexibility in a work schedule. They set up some come back to work rules, and if you did work from home, they allowed you to do that, but oftentimes they were giving. Well, the rule was that they were going to give you a 10% pay cut to work from home
yeah, that
if you
didn't
went that
fly.
route.
That didn't
So
fly.
yeah, I don't know if people love that, but I still, if people probably had a working spouse, they probably took advantage of that. I can just tell that there just seems to be an era of change going on, and people's attitudes and what they're prioritizing. I've also heard this called the Great Reprioritization going on right now because people are reassessing what's important to them, realizing that during COVID and doing remote work, maybe work isn't as important to them.
Yeah.
But probably as civil engineer profession as a whole, I think especially with the consulting world, I do think that consultants have been much more accommodating to their employees. So if they do want to work from home, they're probably working with them to do that. Um, the value of, I think, a company comes from its employees. So I think you're going to do what it takes to make that happen. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
So
So I think you're right. I think more industries have been other types of industries within the civil engineering community have been hit harder than others with this. Um, and but we're kind of both sides of the same coin here, aren't we? We've got lots of turnover and maybe the utility world and the stuff that you see, but maybe the design community, more of the folks that I work with, they've been accommodated a little bit better. They're not getting the 10% pay cuts. Their employers are adjusting and being accommodating, and so they're not seeing that impact. I will say though that as I interview folks that are coming out of school that are just trying to start their careers, of recent graduates, or I've interviewed interns for positions and that are still in school, of course. But those types of concerns that we're talking about here come up during the interview a lot more
hmm,
than they used to, which is kind of interesting. That the up and coming workforce, I would say, is more worried about these things. Maybe having more of a hybrid workplace, if that's possible, where sometimes you're in the office, sometimes you're at home, and the flexibility of your work schedule is a big issue
all
for
right.
these folks coming out of school and starting their careers. So I would say that it's definitely more uh, in the mindset of individuals just getting started too, and starting their careers.
The other thing I was thinking about is a lot of people are experiencing burnout as a reason why they're leaving, and I felt like I experienced a little bit of that, but I think with COVID and what that's done, it's compressed schedules, it's accelerated some, you know, money that needs to be spent and whatnot. And so projects seem to still be there. Nothing has slowed down. And oftentimes people are just doing more and more, even though there are less people to help out with that. So, what do you
Yeah.
think about burnout as a reason for this
Well,
kind of
again, I
thing?
would say that probably the civil engineering community isn't as affected. We can't say. I don't think we can say that we were as affected as like the healthcare community. I mean,
Yeah, for
those
sure.
folks really got nailed, and burnout was really prevalent among healthcare workers, which is understandable. I don't think we're anywhere near those folks, but and then there's a lot of hospitality workers and the folks that work at restaurants and stuff would be thrown in those categories too, that had suffered a lot of burnout. But in the civil engineering community, depending on the industry, there was different levels of burnout. But I'm as you know, in the construction industry, and
Hmm.
man, it was like it was business as usual. My industry, it's hands on. You can't build a building remotely. you know
Yep.
you have to have boots on the ground, and guys swinging hammers and setting up shoring, and pouring concrete and laying rebar. And I mean, there's guys that have to be on site. And so the biggest thing that affected us in those areas was just all of the safety issues, right? We were trying to keep our employees safe. And so how do you do social distancing and some of the things, and wear masks and some of these things that are required, that CDC was requiring of employees, of essential workers, right? Of which construction workers were deemed to be essential workers. And so how do you get a guy to wear a mask on his face when it's, 90 degrees outside and he's working out in the heat? Um, you
He's
know,
not loving that.
he's not loving that. And so if I were to like address fatigue and just general, I don't know, just just
Dislike for the environment, just
yeah, just
working.
unhappiness with the environment that was working. It was because of like some of those safety precautions, those additional safety precautions that we had to impose on our employees because of what was going on with COVID. That caused a little bit of unrest, a little bit of disappointment with guys in the construction industry. But other than that, it was just
Hmm.
we gotta go. We can't build a building remotely.
So
Doesn't
I'm
work.
curious. Other things I've read is that as a professional, if there's employee turnover, it can cost a company anywhere between 75 and 150% of that employee's salary when they basically when you turn over. And
Yeah.
you know, I guess two questions is I'm curious what your answers have been when you're interviewing new guys coming onto the workforce and they want a hybrid kind of thing going on. What has been the answer to that? And then do you have any ideas around what a business could do to prevent turnover and people leaving from happening? What are you
Well,
thinking?
as somebody that employs a lot of people, and then I do a fair amount of hiring and all that stuff. Um, it's just it's you have to be accommodating. You have to be sensitive to people's needs that way. But I would say the biggest thing is just being aware of people's needs. And again, Isaac, this being able to accommodate some of the things that we're talking about here, some of the things that workers want with maybe a hybrid work environment where they're spending some time in the office and some time away, or maybe it's fully remote. Flexibility definitely has to be a, a priority, but I just think that it's kind of industry driven. There's some components or some areas of our industry that just require hands-on, boots on the ground type work that you can't do remotely. Some of us are working in industries or areas of civil engineering that, man, if it's the design community, it's fully, you can accommodate a lot of things remotely. um, so I would just say that, first and foremost, it depends on what area of the industry that you're in. If you're in one of those boots on the ground type industries where people have to be working next to each other, you have to work at a job site, for instance. Then you're just looking at how can you be flexible, how can you be, accommodating to people's family needs, people's personal needs a little bit better. You know, one of the biggest things you can do as a manager is just make sure that your people know that you care, right? That you've got interest in their lives and what's going on in their lives. Not that you need to be, some kind of a nosy boss that's prying into every facet of their lives, but you should actually have a general interest in the people that work for you. Um,
How about gratitude for work that your guys do? Oftentimes,
Absolutely. You
people are
express
cranking stuff out, and sometimes
Yeah,
I never
and
hear
I
a thing.
not to pat myself on the back, but I try to do that as much as I can. If I got guys that have, like, busted their behinds to get something done, we had a deadline to meet. Man, I'll bring them donuts. I'll, give them compliments. Thanks, guys, for a job well done. Just little extras. Sometimes we'll set goals where we're, trying to hit maybe a certain level on a building or something. And if we get up to this level by X date, we'll have a barbecue or, whatever. But um, just little things like that let your employees know that it's not, you're not just pushing them and pushing them and pushing them. There's actually some some thankfulness or some gratitude that you have as their manager for the good work that they're doing. That goes a
Yeah,
long, long way. It
I
really does.
agree. Um, yeah, there's many times, and I'm sure a lot of people relate to that, where you busted your butt, and you might get a thank you, but it's maybe in a weird setting where it's with a ton of employees that you have to meet once a quarter on anyway. It's not really something that they've gone out of their way to say thank you for. I think people experience that a lot, and if they don't feel like valued by a boss or a manager or something, I think definitely show your gratitude. That's definitely going to go a long way. And employees are going to want to do more work for you. They're going to enjoy working with you. I just think overall, if you can express gratitude to your employees, you're going to go a long way.
Absolutely.
I'm curious if we flip the coin a little bit, because I know there are businesses and employers um, that um, that are out there that aren't making changes
Mhm.
to this stuff. And what are your thoughts why they wouldn't make changes? Like, why companies that are maybe larger, um, that don't want to steer that ship too quick and make these adjustments. Why do you think as a leader they wouldn't want to do this?
Um, well, I think if you have a leader that's not trying to um, reach out to their employees, try to understand their employees and the obstacles that they're dealing with, their their problems and the things that they're dealing with that are part of their lives, and try to understand what motivates them and what gets them up in the morning and what brings them to work every morning. If you're a manager or an employer that's not trying to understand those things, then yeah, you're not going to want to try to change. And the reason you wouldn't want to understand those things is, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that, but the biggest one would be, I guess, you're maybe burned out yourself. Maybe you're not, actively trying to better your operations, um, and you might be burned out yourself. But I think employers that aren't realizing that their employees are their biggest assets and actively trying to accommodate needs, and I get it. It's a balance, because you can't, businesses are in business to make a profit. Um, and if their employees, you know, you can have employees that maybe demand too much, and if they're not productive in return, that can be a negative thing. But um, I don't know, Isaac. It's just I would think if an employer is not interested in bettering himself, bettering his organization, he's looking past those things. Maybe he's resting on his laurels. Maybe he's resting on his achievements. Sometimes you see that in, I would say, older companies, older firms that have been around a long time. Maybe they always rest on their laurels and their good reputation that was, built by the hard work of others that came before them.
All right.
And maybe they're kind of sitting on that, just thinking things are just fine and things are going to go on like they've always done for the past 50 years or however long you've been in business, and they're not really looking at what the current issues are and what their current employees needs are.
Makes
um,
sense.
so I don't know, that's kind of a long answer, but
No, I
uh,
think you're right. I think a lot of times, a bigger business might, maybe the president or whatever is kind of resting on those laurels, or is a product of the business itself in terms of the organization and how it's always been run, and it's
yeah,
always going to be run this way. And we're not changing that for anybody. So we're just marching forward with the way things have always been. When
right,
industry trends, and COVID, post COVID, all this stuff is really affecting employees' attitudes. So,
yeah, yeah. As an
um,
employer, you really got to be in touch with your employees' needs, because I mean they change, and we've just had a huge change, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a lot
So
of people moving on from different industries, so it's a big
yeah,
one. And I can't help but think it's affecting the civil engineering world in some way. Maybe not as much, but I do think it is in some ways. And it might not be specifically civil engineers. Maybe it's some of the offshoots, other, maybe project management or other areas that you could go as a civil engineer. There's a lot of different areas. So I can't help but think that it's affecting. You don't have that many people leaving and don't touch every industry. I think so.
yeah.
Um, do you think it'll ever go back to normal? Is my kind of final question for you.
Back to normal. No, I don't think it'll ever go back to quote unquote normal. I think they'll, and a lot of my opinion on that is based on, like I say, some of these guys and gals that are coming out of school that are just starting their careers. It seems to be a I don't know, a permanent mindset that some of these flexibility issues and an employer accommodating more work life balance is kind of in the mindset of these newer upcoming career seekers, and so I think it's more of the old guard that's maybe in positions of management, like we've been talking about, that maybe don't recognize some of these things. But the mid-level people, I think, are at least recognizing that and trying to accommodate it. But I don't think it's ever going to go back to quote unquote normal. I think there'll always
No.
be an element of flexibility and work life balance that will have to be accommodated by every employer, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And really, that question, is it ever going to go back to normal? Like, has COVID gone away? Like the stuff is still around. We're still dealing with it. Um, it's still around. So I just don't think things will ever be back to normal. I think people will always look for flexibility, try to find job satisfaction, search for employers that really value them, want an environment that works for them well,
Hmm.
that they love to work at. Obviously they're looking for salary and compensation as well, which really kind of, inflation these days seems to be eating at that as well. So it's hard
Oh
to
man,
keep up
yeah,
with that. So it's like
it is insane.
never
And
ending
supply
cycle.
chain problems. Yeah, it's insane right now.
So it's like, yeah, pay us more, and then they got to charge more, and it's just a big circle. So
Yeah.
anyway, good discussion. We'll see what happens. We'll keep the pulse on the industry as we move forward. I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was a good topic, and there's a ton of employees moving around, and I just think civil engineering has been a part of that. So, I'm curious if our audience, if you've experienced a job transition or you've wanted a job transition, what that was like for you. Shoot me an email or mark an email. It'd be fun to hear what's going on in your world,
Yeah.
or leave comments and let us know how it's affected you if it has. So,
Yep.
anyway, Mark, thanks for joining.
You bet. Always a good time.
See you on the next one. See ya.
Hey.